Hi everyone, I'm Abigail. This is Evelyn, and welcome to another Two Kids interview. Today we are joined by the father-daughter combo of Kenny Curtis and Jillian Hughes. Mr. Curtis has been in children's entertainment for over 30 years, including many years at SiriusXM where he did the Animal Farm on Kids Place Live. Mr. Curtis and Miss Hughes have now done 10 seasons of the podcast Greeking Out and have two New York Times best-selling books, Greeking Out and Greeking Out Heroes and Olympians. And I have already pre-ordered my copy of Greeking Out Tales of the Underworld that comes out October 7th. Thank you so much for being with us today.
We're very excited. This is awesome. We're really happy to be able to chat with you guys about, mythology and stuff.
You got in early in the podcast craze and with SiriusXM. What drew you to trying that?
Wow, that's a great question. I started out in children's television actually a long, long time ago, back in a weird period in our nation's history known as the 90s. And I was I was a young guy. I was like in my 20s and Jillian was just a baby. But eventually I realized that watching an old bald man in a treehouse would be weird. And I hosted a local children's television show in Baltimore. So I decided to try to get into radio, which is what led me to doing a children's radio show. There was a children's radio network called Radio Oz from Minneapolis, and it was a national radio network. So I started doing radio for kids. And then I did regular radio. I did like rock radio stations and an oldies radio station and stuff. But when satellite radio was starting, they wanted to have kids programming, and there weren't that many people that did kids radio. So they reached out to me. But all along, I've been kind of a Greek mythology, Dungeons and Dragons kind of nerd. So when we got the idea for Greeking Out with National Geographic, I was really excited.
Miss Hughes, you got to be the one Mr. Curtis tried his material on when you were a kid. Do you ever remember telling him, no, don't do that?
All the time, yes.
All the time. Still does.
Yeah, I
Still
was
does.
gonna say I still do that. Now I actually get paid to do that for a living. So it's really worked out in my favor. But no, it was cool. I definitely heard all of his earliest material and he would tell me the best bedtime stories. So it's really because of him that I wanted to grow up and become a writer too. So it all worked out in the end, I think.
Do you remember any of the stories now? And if so, was there a favorite?
Yeah, I do
Okay.
remember some of the stories. I mean, I will say now, the plots were a little convoluted, I have to say. We needed to streamline these, but there were definitely, I mean, there were stories about princesses and pirates, and there was, some religious undertones in there.
In
It
my
was
defense, I was making it up as I went along. So,
it was all over, but I do remember like trying to tell my friends, like in second grade, like, listen, I've got the best story from my dad, and just sit down. We're going to be here all day. I'll map it out for you. And I mean, they were not as interested in it as I was, I think, because I wasn't telling it as good as Kenny did, but I was always wrapped from the get-go. But yeah, it was a big princess theme for me, I think. And dragons. There were dragons too. The
a lot of
princess
dragons.
rode the dragon. It was, it had some mythology elements.
Hmm.
Animal Farm had parody songs in it. I love parody songs and writing them too. What advice do you have for a good parody?
Well, I think a parody, that's a great question too. I think a parody, right? That means that you're sort of taking something and twisting it in a different way so that you're sounding like the original, but you're different. Like Weird Al Yankovic does parody songs. I think the thing is you've got to respect, and that means you've got to really understand what you're making fun of, what you're parodying, and you got to do it in a loving way so that even people who like that are in on the joke. The cleverness of a parody is that you're showing people, you're sort of talking about two things at the same time. Weird Al Yankovic did a parody of, there's an old Michael Jackson song called Beat It, and his was called Eat It. And it was all about how little kids never eat their food. You know what I mean? It was from a parent's point of view. You got to eat your food, eat your spam, eat it all up. So he just changed the lyrics, and these were two very different things, but they were silly and they went together. So I think the real key to a good parody is to find things that don't seem like they would go together, but actually do, like Kids Who Don't Eat and a Michael Jackson song from the 80s.
I'm a big Greek mythology nerd. First, I want to know who came up with the awesome title Greeking It.
Not us.
Well, it wasn't us. It wasn't. I
Yeah.
wish it was.
Unfortunately, no. But so this podcast, the Greeking Out podcast, it actually came about because of another book. Um, and in that book, why am I drawing about Zeus
Zeus the
Almighty,
Mighty.
right?
Yep,
Yeah.
Zeus the Mighty.
Zeus the Mighty by Crispin Boyer. He has a pet store, and in that pet store, the animals think that they're Greek gods because they listen to a podcast called Greeking Out. So Crispin Boyer actually coined that phrase, Greeking Out. And then when they were trying to promote that book, they thought it would be really fun to make the Greeking Out podcast, like for real, for people to listen to. And then the podcast, Greeking Out, got so popular and people liked it so much that that kind of took on a life of its own. And then eventually it got its own book series, the Greeking Out books. So it was a book that started a podcast that has now ended up as a book. So it's full circle.
How much research goes into your podcast, and what does the research look like?
Well, it starts with a conversation between our producer, Emily Everhart, she's great. She is the wings above our wind. She really does all the work for this podcast, and she is really knowledgeable about mythology and everything like that. And she's Greek and the whole deal. So she'll kick around some ideas with us about what we're gonna do for the series, and then Jillian and I will do the research online, outline a story, and then we'll do the script based on the outline. And then once we've written the script, they send the script to a National Geographic expert. This is where being with National Geographic really helps because they'll send it. Our current expert is a classics professor in San Francisco named Meredith. I can't remember her last name, but she's awesome. And we send her the scripts and she'll look it over and she'll say, okay, yeah, this is what Homer was trying to say. No, Hesiod might have meant this, or Ovid was doing this. So she knows the actual source material better than anybody else does. So she can say whether or not we're deviating too far from the source material. Since this is a podcast for kids and families, we do tend to take some liberties and we paraphrase some stuff. That's cool. We just want to make sure that the experts understand it and say, yeah, this makes sense. Yes, this works. So we are really true to the source material. Rick Riordan and the Percy Jackson stuff, he can do whatever he wants. He can just take some names, and there's a lot of Greek mythology inspired stories that aren't really true to the source material. But since we're with National Geographic, we try to be as close to the original as we possibly can be.
Who is each of your favorite characters in Greek mythology?
Question.
Start, Jill.
Okay. I like Cersei because she's a sorceress and she's got all the power and she turns men into pigs. So she's my pick for sure.
I like the centaur Chiron, who is the teacher. He was the teacher of all the heroes. And I think he's underrated. Not just because he's a centaur. And we'll get into the centaur thing later. But because he was in so many stories. Like he taught Jason, Achilles, Heracles. He taught all the great heroes how to be heroes. And one of my other favorites is one of the heroes that he taught was a hero named Asclepius, who was the son of Apollo. And he wasn't a warrior hero. He was actually a doctor. He was like the first healer. And he was so good at healing people that eventually Hades got mad because he was able to raise the dead. And Hades was like, that's not cool. So Hades and Zeus got together and they had to thunderbolt him. It's what happens if you get too good at your job, I guess.
Right.
You were 10 seasons into Greeking Out. How many do you even keep it going for?
20, 100. I don't know. We're going to run out of Greek myths eventually, but I'm surprised that we're still finding new versions of stories to tell. What
Mhm.
I really like that we're doing, and Jill, you can speak to more of this. I like that we're uh, doing more in different myths that aren't Greek. We're doing field trips every season and starting to tell different myths from around the world. Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, those are the obvious ones, but we're going way out, you know. Some of the Indonesian myths, like the Filipino myths, are crazy. They have these weird monsters. It's nuts.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
just
there
have
are
one question.
oh, go ahead.
Since it's called Greeking out, do you think you're gonna like change anything with that kind of thing?
No, I mean, I guess we jokingly call it roaming around sometimes if we do the Roman myths, or what was it? Ragnaroking out.
Yeah.
We do when we do the Norse myths. But I think there's always going to be an element of Greek storytelling and of Greek mythology in the podcast every year. Wouldn't you say, Jill?
Yeah, we try to make sure that there's some Greek myths in every season. And yeah, I think that the reason that we're kind of expanding is because we are going to run out of Greek myths. But also, you can kind of see when you've been doing this for a while that a lot of the themes and the stories are very similar, and that's been really cool to me to be like all across the world, all different cultures and regions, they all have very similar myths of like the creation story. There are a lot of snakes in every culture and every myth, things like that, underworld stories in every mythology. So it's cool to see how they all overlap. But the Greek mythology is always going to be our main bread and butter because that's where it started. And that really is where, like, when you think of mythology, that's the main thing that most people associate with it.
Long time, Hercules was getting the most pop culture coverage. He's had movies including a Disney movie, the Kevin Sorbo TV show. Which characters from Greek mythology do you think would be the most upset about Hercules having so much fame?
Good
Oh
question.
man, that's a great question.
Yeah. Hera would
Hera,
not like it
yeah,
right off the bat, right?
yeah, I mean Hercules, the actual the Greek pronunciation is Heracles, and that literally means because of or as a result of Hera. And that's because Hera was messing with that guy literally from the moment he was born. So yeah, she would be I think she's the obvious one that would
Hmm.
be getting a lot of upset. But I also think I'm wondering if Zeus would be a little put out. Zeus has got a big ego, and even though Heracles is his son, I'm not sure he'd want his son to be getting so much attention. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, I kind of think the other, like maybe like Perseus, like the other demigods, there'll be some like brotherly rivalry. I also feel like Athena doesn't have time for it. Well, no, but she did help him out. But I feel like if he kept getting all the attention, she would not like
Yeah,
that.
I think that now that we know that they're going to do a musical, a stage musical of Hercules, I think Athena would object to that. I think that's
Hmm.
probably the line, and I think it would have crossed. She would be like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, now we got to do something." Yeah. So if it doesn't go well, you'll know the gods have been offended.
Mhm.
What are your favorite Greek mythology stories being written now? Not including your own.
I got to go with Madeline Miller.
I know. I was gonna
She's a
say that.
grown-up writer, but she's written two great stories that are true to the characters and true to the source material. One is called Song of Achilles, and the other one is Circe. And I loved it. I thought that were great. Although the Percy Jackson stuff is so much fun, and I mean, Rick Riordan has built this entire world. It's not just like one thing. It's a whole
Mhm.
universe, and that is really fun to dive into.
Yeah, it's been a good like community to join this whole Greek mythology thing. Like everybody is, you would think that our books would be in competition with each other, but it seems like people that are fans of Greek mythology, one project, tend to like the other projects too. So we're all just sort of building each other up and are being, supportive of each other's work and vision. And when you have characters that have been around for as long as these, gods and goddesses, it's like everybody kind of has a right to play with them and to make them their own. So even then we encourage our readers and listeners to do that too. Like these stories belong to everybody. So, it's great. Everybody that does that has work coming out right now, it's all different, even though they're the same kind of characters and premise. Everyone has their own unique spin on it. It's been really fun to see.
Catherine Marsh is an author that we're going to work with. She has a Medusa book and another one coming out, and she's got a really fun take on Greek mythology as well. Great stuff.
Mr. Curtis, please cover your ears. This question is not for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cover them up.
Okay, quickly. Tell us the truth. What's the hardest thing about working with your dad?
Oh man, the hardest thing. Sometimes he thinks he's in charge because he's the dad. And so I have to remind him, like, we're a team here. But no, he really knows that I'm in charge. But I tell him what to do. But no, I think that's just making sure that he listens to me and that he, sees me as an equal, not just his little girl. That's been the hardest part. Also, he tells a lot of really bad jokes, and I have to tell him that it's not always funny. He thinks that he's funny because he has a good track record of being a comedian, but some of these jokes, man, they're rough. Let me tell you. A lot of dad jokes. Okay. You can uncover your ears.
I'm good.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. You
We
didn't
were
say
just
anything
talking
bad.
about how funny you are.
Oh, cool. Nice. Why do I feel like that's a lie?
Mr. Curtis, you were actually live on the air when 9/11 happened. What do you remember about that moment and that day?
Wow, that was a day. Yes. XM before Sirius XM was one company. They were two different satellite radios. There was Sirius and XM. And XM satellite radio debuted on the 12th of no, the 11th on September that we were supposed to go to air that day. That was we were welcoming to the country. In fact, we were all over the cover of USA Today that nobody read because 9/11 had happened. I was in Washington, D.C., and I remember somebody bursting into my studio saying, "Turn the television on." A plane just flew into the World Trade Center, and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." I was like, I got to do a kid show. I can't watch that." So I didn't turn it on until emails started coming through because you have your computer open, and I kept seeing what, and I finally turned it on, and I realized, oh, this is not good. And it was terrifying. I have a colleague who was actually supposed to be on the plane. He was booked on the plane that wound up crashing into the Pentagon. He changed his flight at the last minute because he wanted to go at San Diego a day earlier. And so yeah, he got very lucky. It was terrifying. It took me like I didn't get home until 11 o'clock that night because I couldn't take the train home. We couldn't, the roads were closed. We couldn't drive. We couldn't leave from DC. And we had hosts and talent like my colleague Jim, who were in different places all around the country, supposed to be live on the radio that day, and none of them could fly home. They all had to drive back to Washington, D.C. It was a weird and sad and scary time, but we got through it.
Can you tell us exactly where you were and your reaction when you both found out that you became New York Times best-selling authors?
I was right there. I think I was sitting right there. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. But yeah.
Yeah, I was coaching my kids soccer team. They are how old are they? I guess they were 5 and 6 at the time. And I got the emails. We got an email and it came up on my Apple Watch and it just said like New York Times bestseller in the subject line. And I was like, what? Just like went crazy and kind of was like, I'll be right back, and just like ran away. And then I called you. And
Mhm.
I think I told you. I don't think you knew.
I don't think I did either. I think
Because
I
I
was
was
seeing
just
you.
screaming and you were
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? So
Yeah.
yeah, that was really fun and unexpected. And then I got off the phone and was like, okay, Coaching soccer again. All right, back to real
Right.
life.
That's right.
So,
Trap the ball.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you concerned at all about artificial intelligence and its impact on books and publishing?
Wow. Boy, good heavy
I know
question.
you
Good
guys
question.
got some good questions.
Seriously, you're bringing them out. Well, I don't know how you feel about it, Jill. I'm less concerned about it in books because stories require a creator, and I think artificial intelligence can borrow from other things to create something new, but I don't think a really it's hard to explain, but one of the things that I think I love the most about Greeking Out is the tone. It's not just the
Huh.
story that we tell, but it's the way we tell the story. And I'm pretty sure, I'm sure artificial intelligence can come up with some dad jokes, but I'd like to think I bring them. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that that's a hard thing to quantify into bits and bytes for a computer. They can pull sources and jokes and stories, but they can't put them together and relate them in the way a human can. So
Mhm.
I believe that stories in terms of an original intellectual property of books, I think that's okay. I'm more concerned about like radio shows and people's voices and people's images and the artwork that goes into a book that a computer can look at and then recreate in different ways. That kind of scares me because I feel like that's not fair to the humans who do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of scary and a little sad. It's like I'm all for artificial intelligence, but I want artificial intelligence to like do my laundry for me. I don't want it to like write a poem, you know?
Right.
Like that is what makes humans great is making art and all different types of art. And I think you can try to imitate that, but like Kenny said, like at the end of the day, it's, you need a real human talking about human things and human experiences in a way only a real live person can. So I'm hoping that it won't take off, but it's a shame that we're people are trying to make that happen instead of like all the other
Yeah.
boring tasks that I would personally love a robot to do, you know?
I'm with you. Like I making art, whether you're making a story or a song or a painting, that's fun. Like if you're an artist, you're enjoying that process of creating. We're lucky that we get to do it. You know what I mean? And you're enjoying that. So to me, I could understand why a college student might use AI to write a boring college paper that they don't really enjoy doing. But why would a songwriter who loves music and loves writing a song get a computer to write the song for him? Maybe if it was a commercial jingle, okay. But if you're just writing a song because you love to do it, you're going to do it yourself. You don't want a computer to do that. But laundry, absolutely fair game. 100%.
You've interviewed a number of authors that have had books banned. Can you give us your thoughts on book bans?
Personally, one of my goals in life is to have one of my books banned. I think that it means that you wrote something that matters. So I see that as the highest compliment. And yeah, books, I do not think books should be banned. But um, yeah, so I mean, books, freedom of speech is what makes this country. And if they start banning books, that is a sign that, things are not going well. And that makes me want to read the book even more. So I think if your book gets banned, that means that it matters and it's important and it has the ability to affect society in a way that the powers that be don't want it to. But again, kind of like AI, I'm like, we've got enough going on in this world that why are you worried about the books? Like, focus on something else. What about you?
Yeah. Nobody forces you to read a book. It's not
Yeah.
like we're requiring you to read this book. You have to go out and get it, check it out at the library or buy it. So, it's not like I'm forcing it on. I don't see why you need to ban any book. It's a book. Don't like it? Don't read it. At the end of the day, that's the way it should be. But I totally agree. It would be kind of we're sort of like that kind of anarchist kind of thing. It would be kind of cool to have your book banned. It's just like, yes, you've suddenly done something that at least is impactful in some way. I don't know if our publisher would agree. I should
Yeah, I was
that
gonna
out.
say I'm
Pat
in
Geo may
trouble
have
for
very
that
different
answer.
feelings about that, just so you know. We would think it was kind of cool, but you know.
What writer has had the most influence on each of you?
Hmm.
Are you gonna say it?
I'm just going to show it. Should I
There
show
you
it?
go.
Should I show
Yeah,
it? I'm going
show
to
it.
show it. Here it is. Edith Hamilton's Mythology. Um, I always say this for Greeking Out. Like, this was when I was a kid. Talk about books that are probably inappropriate. I was reading this when I was way too young, but I loved this book. And I wish I'd had this version because this version's got some cool pictures that I would have totally obsessed on. Cyclops. Um, Edith Hamilton's Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes. That's what kind of got me into, well, actually, it got me into Dungeons and Dragons back before computers could play it, and then eventually got me into more into Greek mythology. So that's a lot of influence. I also love Charles Dickens and Mark Twain, two truly great storytellers.
Yeah, that's good. Um, I don't know. My gut answer is probably I've always been a big Harry Potter fan, so I'll go with J.K. Rowling. Um, just because that was the first book I read as a kid that really made me fall in love with writing and created a whole new world. And, there's nothing like that feeling of like waiting for the next book to come out and, you wait at the bookstore and like that was like a very significant part of my childhood. And even as an adult, just going back and rereading those books, like it's just like a comfort food for me. So that's always a forever favorite. I really like books that have like a magical realism component, like Alice Hoffman, and stories that are a little bit that are kind of set in the modern world but have mystical elements to it. And I love Madeline Miller, that Kenny mentioned earlier, that wrote Circe and Songs of Achilles. She's a beautiful writer. Um, yeah, there's lots. I can't even list them all, but yeah.
Our sources tell us that in the upcoming Greeking Out book, you're going to take us to Egypt with Osiris and Isis. What else can we expect in this book?
Ooh. Jill, you're better at teasing this than I am. I'll just say we're gonna get into some otherworldly stories.
Yes, yes. It's not just Egypt, so there will be other mythologies that we feature, which is the first time that we've done that in a Greeking Out book. So, but yeah, it is the Underworld theme, Tales from the Underworld. So they all have that component. And it's gonna come out, like you said, October 7th, right before Halloween. So it's got some spooky undertones. Nothing too crazy, but we've got a lot of rescuing people from the underworld. We've got star-crossed lovers that end up in the underworld. We got a lot of strong female leads in here. So got monsters. It's got a little bit of something for everybody in there, but definitely spooky and fun Halloween kind of type vibes.
Does it have Hades?
Oh
Of
yeah.
course, of course. And I'm proud to say that Hades is on the cover. So.
Yeah, Hades this is a cover shot for Hades. That's right.
Yep. This is his big day. But
So
but honestly, I will say when we were writing this book that there were not as many Hades myths as I thought there would be. For he kind of keeps a low profile. He doesn't really, I think he gets a bad rep because he's in a scary place, but compared to the other gods, Hades is actually pretty well behaved. So
yeah,
we have
we had
stories that mention him, but it's not as crazy as you would think.
yeah, see there he is. There's Hades right there. See there he is.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's got great facial hair.
He really does.
I've always said that Hades was so underrated and
Yes,
just had a bad
agreed.
reputation. I've always said that.
It's
Mm-hmm.
true. It's true.
It
It's
is very true. I
he
mean,
got
like you look at Zeus, like Zeus is way worse than Hades in terms
oh
of
yeah.
actions. I mean,
Hades literally drew the short straw. Like
yeah.
they were trying to figure out who was going to be the king of the gods, and they drew straws for it, the three brothers. because they couldn't stop arguing, and the sisters were finally like, "We got to figure this out for them." And Zeus got the long straw, despite being the baby brother, and Poseidon got the sea, which is cool. This is cool, but Hades, he had to get the underworld. That is literally the short straw. So I feel for him. That still
I know
doesn't
you
excuse going off and just kidnapping Persephone. That was not cool. Not cool, man.
I know you haven't even come out with a third book yet, but when can we expect the fourth Greeking Out book? And what will the theme for that one be?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can tell you a lot about it, but the fourth one is in the works. And it is going to be similar to the third in that it will include other mythologies.
Yep.
But
I think it will be about a year from when
mhm,
the third book is up. We're gonna try to put one out. We've been trying to put one out a year.
that
Finally,
might
it's
be
time
all
for
we can
Turbo
say.
10. 10 rapid fire questions. Are you both ready?
Okay.
Yes.
Number one, what is your favorite phrase to use?
Oh.
I say
Like,
all the time. I'm gonna say I'm going with that.
I'll go with like or oh my God. I say that a lot.
Number two, what is one subject you love to learn more about?
The Greek language. I'd like to learn more about the Greek language because I can't pronounce the names as well as I should. I need to learn like how to speak that language.
I would like to learn more about pickleball.
Number three, what is your go-to snack food?
Oh, yeah. Yours is ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say trail mix because I like, but the truth is, it's ice cream,
Yeah, I like
and
Cheetos.
I
We should
won't
answer for each other. I bet I could get all yours faster
I
than I
won't
could.
say any I won't say brand names, but their name rhymes with Glenn and Barry.
What was your favorite book growing up?
Well, I said Harry Potter. I'm sticking with Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
the first book I started reading was this is lame, but it was a Hardy Boys book. Started reading the Hardy Boys books really early, but I think my first book, my favorite book growing up, was by a guy named Robert Heinlein, and it was a book called The Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and it came out after the Star Wars movie came out, but before The Empire Strikes Back, and it was a book, it was a story about all the Star Wars characters that George Lucas had approved that this guy wrote. I loved that book so much as a kid. And it still sticks with me today. Look it up. Robert Heinlein's Splinter of the Mind's Eye is what it's called. It's got Darth Vader on the cover.
Number five, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Teleport. Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii is a great one. Iceland. I want to go back to Iceland and be on the volcano before it melts all over everything.
I would go to Greece so I could see all the myths from the book. I would go
Hey,
back
that's a
in
better
time to
answer.
Greece.
It's
I felt
way
like that
better.
was obvious. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
gosh. That was a missed opportunity right there.
I said that. Yeah.
I would go back in time to Greece. I already went.
Okay.
Number six, if you had one superpower, what would it
Flying. I think flying would be cool.
Me, teleportation, just like you said. I would love that would be so clutch to be able to just go wherever you wanted to go like that. I would probably be really fat though, because I'd never stand. Because I just go, I'd never walk. I just be like, yeah.
be? Number seven,
Teleport to the fridge.
teleport
Go
to
ahead.
our classes in school. No, we wouldn't be late. Yeah, that's so
Right?
smart. That's so smart. Number seven, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
I like Rugrats.
Congrats is a great one. I'm a Johnny Bravo. Oh, that was I guess I was a grown up though when Johnny Bravo came out. Johnny Bravo was hilarious.
Did they have TV when you were growing up?
They The cartoons were carved on the cave
Yeah,
wall.
there you go.
That's how we did it back in my day. They were stick figures that moved a little bit. Uh, no, I'm classic Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. Love Daffy Duck.
Number 8. What is your favorite rainy day activity?
Hmm. Reading. I love to read with my cup of coffee, sitting on the couch under a blanket with the rain. Good vibes.
I want to say reading, but the truth is, it's not reading, it's napping because I just hold the book and I fall right asleep. But I love the sound of rain on the roof and I'm out. I'm done.
Number 9. If you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Ooh, ooh.
No.
I would go with, I'm going to go writers. I would go with Charles Dickens because uh, my favorite story book ever written was A Christmas Carol. I love that. The fact that it's a Christmas story and a ghost story, it's awesome. Homer, because he wrote the first story, and I have so many questions, so many questions.
We're noting behind the
And
school.
then I would probably say I want to get somebody like really important. This is going to sound weird, but I'm going to say Barack Obama because I've always wanted to have a conversation with Barack Obama. So I'm going to say all three of those guys. Put them together in a room, see what happens. Jill?
It's a lot of pressure. All right. I'm gonna have to say Oprah because, of course, you need Oprah there. Um, who's my second one? I think I kind of want to do like, like someone dead. Like dead would be cool just because. But so I'm gonna go maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Oprah, and then my guts is Sylvia Plath, who was a famous poet. I love her. So that would be a good girl gang
Kind
right
of a
there.
downer though, right? I mean, that would be kind of hard.
She's no, she's gonna be in a good mood. She's gonna
All right, cool.
be in better mental health now.
Right, exactly. This is good. Good. That was the happy Sylvia. I got it.
Yes.
Number 10. What is the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Never pass up the opportunity to go to the bathroom. Never pass that up. You don't think, even if you don't have to go, just go because you don't know when you're going to get another chance to get again. There's got to be something better. Somebody must have told me something more important than that, but I can't think of it right now.
Out of
Sorry.
every single person saying that, that's the best.
Okay, good. Well, it's practical. It's a very practical piece of advice. It's a dad thing. Are you sure you don't have to go? You should probably go anyway. You know.
I'm trying to think of mine. I think mine is that it's um um tenacity over talent. It's more important to stick with something and to work hard than it is to be naturally good at something. Just it's not necessarily the most talented person that wins, it's the person that doesn't give up. So stick with it.
That's right. It's the three things I forgot. I had a boss tell me that once. He said there's a famous quote from William Shakespeare in a play called Twelfth Night where he says, "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." And that really means that if you want to be successful, you need three things. You need talent, you need the drive to work hard, and then you need a little bit of luck. You need the opportunity to get it. Because we all know there are a million great writers out there who have a million great ideas, but they never actually sit down and write it. So we don't know anything about it. And there are a lot of writers who get better as they write, just as Jillian suggested, and they put it out there. And everybody needs a break. So here's hoping we all get ours.
You were awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for spending the time with us. We can't wait to keep reading, Greeking Out, and listening to Greeking Out with you.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you. This was so fun.